Okay, great. I'm going to send it live now. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning from wherever you're joining us from today. My name's Sarah and I'm the Program and Event Manager at the Reactor in Sydney. Welcome to another Microsoft Reactor Sydney livestream event. Today I would like to welcome back Joana Inch. Joana is a business-to-business digital marketer and best-selling author of the Go-to-Market book. She has dedicated 15 years to implementing digital growth strategies in the tech and SaaS space, with 10 years as founder of her own digital marketing agency, Hat Media. So today's session will be approximately 60 minutes with about 10 minutes at the end for questions. However, do send us your questions throughout in the Q&A, and between myself and Joana, we will try and answer as many as possible. And at the conclusion of the session, we'll also share with you links to our feedback survey and the link to our YouTube channel. So if there's any section you've missed today, there will be an on-demand version available within the next 24 to 48 hours. But for now, without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Joana to begin. So Joana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Welcome everybody, wherever you are in the world. Welcome on board. And as Sarah said, best-selling author of a book, Go-to-Market, and I will actually give you the opportunity to win a free copy of that book today. This presentation, is very much condensed based on what's in the book, and I will try and go through it in as much detail as possible. However, definitely if you want to get a free copy of the book and read a lot more on some of these topics, you will have that opportunity. So without further ado, I'll get straight into it. Quick agenda. I'll just give you a quick intro about myself, and then what I'd like to do is talk about building your foundations before we go into any kind of lead generation or go-to-market approach or campaigns. I think one of the most crucial and important things you could do for your business, and also just to avoid marketing and advertising dollars being wasted away, I think you really need to do some of the work on your foundation. So I want to touch on that a little bit before I go into lead gen. Just a quick one about me. So I am the co-founder of a digital marketing agency based in sunny Manly Beach in Australia called Hat Media. It's been around for the last 11 years, and we've predominantly been working with SaaS and tech clients in the B2B space on campaigns such as content marketing, marketing automation, and lead gen. This year, I was very fortunate and lucky to have published my book, Go-to-Market, and it made best-selling status in Amazon for categories in web marketing and entrepreneurship. So really pleased with that. Just some other results that we've seen with some of our campaigns. We helped Lenovo in Asia Pacific generate US 66 million in 12 months through some of these campaigns. And the reason I mention that is because some of the strategies that we use there is something I'm going to be sharing on this webinar today. So stay tuned. Also, some of the campaigns that we ran that I'll be sharing on the call today helped Navman Wireless generate an increase in lead gen by 975%. We've also worked with quite a few startups. So yes, we have some enterprise clients, but actually predominantly we work with startups. So a lot of the campaigns that I share with you today, they are actually built for the startup industry rather than the enterprises. So I do very much have that in mind. So a lot of these campaigns would be relevant to you for that. So that's enough about me. Let's get started on how do you build your foundation so that you're ready to go to market. You know exactly who your niche is, or your target audience, or your buyer persona, or your ideal client profile. There's so many names for this term out there. I like to call it your niche. I think it's very important that you clarify who they are, and then just how you speak to them, as well as what their buyer journey looks like. So why is it important to have a niche? I think, this is a mistake I see a lot of startups as well as a lot of enterprises make. They kind of get their product out there, they're ready to launch, and they say something like, oh no, this product is for everybody, there's a lot of people that can use it. And that's all very well, but if you don't identify a niche, what you end up doing is you're trying to cater to a lot of different people with a lot of different messages, and it simply doesn't work as well as it could. Yes, you could get some clients on board, but it actually really slows down your growth and your scaling journey. So we highly recommend identifying a niche and just really nailing that niche, becoming, the thought leader for that niche, the best kind of company for that specific niche. Like, you understand them in and out, you know exactly what their pain points are, what their challenges are, and your product or service is the best one at solving that. And when you nail your niche, don't think you're thinking small. You're definitely not thinking small. What you're doing instead is you're becoming laser focused on a specific customer with a specific pain. And so what you find is that when you do your lead gen and lead nurture, and even, when you come up with opportunities and meetings and deals, they are a lot easier to convert because they see you as a thought leader in that space, as opposed to someone who's generic and has, generic messages out there trying to help everybody. And I just want to give you some examples from the greats. So HubSpot, you may know HubSpot, massive agency at the moment. They just started with marketing automation. Right now they've got, Service Hub, Sales Hub. They have, a world of automation and marketing related tools. We also look at someone like Facebook, which started with Ivy League colleges or schools. And, now they're one of the biggest social platforms with the most amount of users. Also looking at Amazon, so they started with books, as you know, back in the day, and you just have to look at a video on YouTube of how their supply chain works to see how far they've come since then. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, they all started with a niche, and this is why they were able to scale and grow. So don't think that by starting with a niche, that's it. There'll be, that's the only place you're going to play at. Obviously, over the years, as a business, you will evolve and your niche will also evolve. So how do you go by nailing your niche? I actually have a few questions here that you can ask, and I'm not going to read these out loud, but I'm happy to share this deck with you after the call, so you can, implement them and try and answer some of them in order to nail your niche. And here's just the top 10s. And a lot of them are to do with, work that you've done for existing customers, some of the results you've already achieved, and really just questions that are asking you to review previous patterns as well. Once you've nailed your niche and you know exactly who your target audience is, the next thing you really need to focus on is clarifying your message to that specific audience. And I like to use the grunt test as an example. So what I mean by that is, if you should be able to explain what you offer, how it makes their life better, as well as how they can buy it really clearly within 5 seconds of them looking on your website or any of your marketing collateral. You should be able to answer that. The key here is clarity. You really don't want them burning brain calories trying to figure out, what is this product and how can I buy it? I've got a 6-year-old daughter, so I usually like to say, if I explain something to her and she can understand it, that means, I've nailed that clarity piece. So definitely try and, make it really clear to your audience. I just want to have some examples when you're writing your copy. So obviously what you want to do when you're explaining what you do, what your product is, or what your service is to your niche, there's 2 levels of problems that your customers will face that you need to be aware of. The first one is external problems. For example, I want to buy a car. And the second one is internal problems, and that's really, I really have, have a need for freedom and mobility. I need to get around. So what you want to be doing with your copy is you want to be solving the internal problems. And you'll find a lot of your competitors, if you go on some of their websites and you read their copy, they're very likely catering to your customers' external problems. And customers just don't resonate with their external problems in the same way that they resonate with their internal problems. So this is really a good way for you to differentiate yourselves from your competitors. If you really understand your target audience or your niche, you understand their internal problems, definitely write copy with that in mind. Help them nail their internal problems as opposed to their external problems, and it will really help you differentiate yourself. Now, it's all well and good if you know how to solve your customers' internal problems. However, there's a few other things at play that you need to be aware of when you're building out your marketing collaterals or your websites or your landing pages in order to get more conversions. So we touched on, clarifying your message, which is very important. We also touched on using internal problems, instead of external problems. The other thing you need to be aware of is, demonstrating empathy and authority. So with empathy, I think you'll nail that if you can focus on their internal problems and write copy that really explains how they can solve that really quickly and easily just by using your product or service. But aside from showing empathy, you also need to show authority. And that's why are you the person that can solve this problem for them? And so what makes up authority? Things like Google rating or Facebook reviews or testimonials, statistics perhaps. And I've just used this website called Inspire, which is a local business, a local accounting business based in Brisbane in Australia. And I've just used their website as an example because I actually think they've done a really good job at touching on all of those elements. So the first one you'll notice, they're focusing on internal problems rather than external problems. So they're not saying, we can do your tax returns or we can do your cash flow. They're actually saying, we have a family first philosophy. And I know a lot of the small business owners, one of their biggest internal pain points is, how do I get to spend more time with my family? How can I step away from the business? And they're very much using that in their copy and catering to it. So they're saying, not we can, do your tax return, but we can help you make more time for your family, which I think is brilliant. Then what they've also done is they've used the statistics. So they've saved people over $4 million in tax, which is fantastic. But, they've done a lot of work, so therefore they must, specialize in this field. You'll also notice their Google rating of 4.9, which is an excellent score, and it's all coming up in the top fold at first glance. So within 5 seconds of looking at this website, I know these guys are really good at what they do, and also it's very easy for me to book a chat with them. Just the last thing to be mindful of is call to actions. And I like to have direct call to actions as the very clear one. This is the primary call to action you want your audience to take. And if you're in the world of tech or SaaS, it could be something like book a demo or book a live demo or book a consultation or a meeting, something along those lines. And this really nicely should sit at the very top of your website, really easy to click on. However, you also need to be mindful that a lot of the people that come on your website, a lot of this niche that you're targeting, they're not quite at that stage yet. They're not ready to book a chat or a consultation or a demo. So what you need to do is provide a transitional call to action to them. And usually this is in the form of offering them, a guide or an ebook. In this website's case, they're offering them to take up a cashed up quiz. It's really just a quick quiz or a survey that small business owners can take to see where they can improve. Yours might look a lot different to that. It can be also in the form of a webinar, which I find works really well. So once you've nailed your niche and you've worked out, exactly how you're going to write your copy to resonate with this niche, the next step is really to map out their buyer journey. So how are we going to go from awareness to customer and beyond? Do they need an education on your product or service, or are they very much at that stage where they're picking between vendors? So really, we just need to be mindful of what their journey is going to look like, and then we can easily map it out with the exact messages, call to actions, and also channels and platforms that we're going to use. So just a few things to keep in mind when building out your buyer journey. So obviously, you need to map out your call to actions. Where is my direct or transitional call to action going to sit? So if you're a B2B company and you're advertising on LinkedIn, you're probably advertising an ebook or a guide. So you're using your transitional call to action. You will then use your direct call to action further down the funnel through email or through a remarketing ad on LinkedIn. You should also map out your key messages. So, and I'll show you what a buyer journey looks like in a minute. But basically, you'll be using different messages throughout their journey. So what problems are you solving, and where do they appear? What advertising material do they appear on? Is it email? Is it social? Is it, direct messaging? Then you should also define these exact channels and touch points. Just some things to keep in mind when you are building out your buyer journey. So obviously you're looking at your customers' pain points at every step of the way. So are they needing an education on this product? Are they looking between vendors? Do they need to see more case studies? So depending on where in their buyer journey they are, this is really where the pain points need to come at play and you need to be solving them. Another tip is just to use your customer language, so never use jargon. So if you're a SaaS provider, I know you love to talk about your features, and I know they're amazing, and you've spent countless time and money and energy into developing these features. But unfortunately, the customer simply doesn't care about features. They care about how are you going to help me in my day-to-day and how are you going to solve my internal problems. So you need to speak your customer's language when you're showcasing what you can do. And just one last thing to keep in mind before I show you the map is it'd be good if you could add flexibility jumps. So no one's journey is linear, and especially if you're targeting enterprises that have all sorts of internal issues at play, people changing jobs, people getting made redundant that you've been targeting, procurement, legal. There's so many different reasons why a customer's journey might not be linear. So you just need to consider some of those issues at play and just keep them in mind when you're building out your buyer journey map. This is just a quick image of what a buyer journey could look like. So in the Q&A, there should be a link where you can access just a blank template. If you wanted to download that, it's just in the form of a Google Sheet. You can feel free to download that and just start building it out with your steps. It doesn't have to be a visual, a really pretty representation. If you're very much like me and you just love working with data and spreadsheets, you can use Excel or Google Sheets, or you could build it in something a lot more visual. But very much some of the stages that you want to cover is who is my niche, what is their buyer stage, and you'll notice I actually have 2 steps for top of funnel, and that's because if you're in the world of B2B, sometimes they do need 2 steps at the top of the funnel, because you'll find that especially if your product is quite new to the market and not many people have heard of it, they probably need a lot more education before they get to the awareness phase. Also, sometimes in the world of B2B, they can take up to 24 months to actually become a customer. So you do need to have a few steps at the very top of the funnel before they're kind of ready to go to the middle of funnel and seeing, content assets such as case studies from you, as an example. Now that we've built our foundation, so we nailed our niche, we know exactly how we're going to speak to them, we've mapped out the buyer journey. Feel free, if you've downloaded the buyer journey and you have any questions around it, feel free to find me on LinkedIn and share yours with me. I'm happy to help you further flesh it out and define it. And once you've done that, of course, I think that's when you're ready for lead generation. So I definitely recommend building those foundations, whether you've just started, no matter where on your startup journey you are, I think you still need to do that homework. I've even gotten enterprise clients to do that homework because they've grown too quickly and they've still been using, the exact same messages that they were using 5 years ago. And, it's something that you need to keep innovating and refining to your current existing niche. So once you've done that, I think that's when you're ready for lead gen. Now, when we talk about lead gen, I think you should see it as a bit more of a holistic approach. So not just lead gen, but also lead qualifying and lead nurturing, I think are very important because it's very easy to get leads into your database, but if they're not qualified and they're not converting, then your lead gen efforts are just not effective. So I think you need to keep in mind all three of those. So some of the channels that you could use for lead generation, I'll go through on the next slide. I first just want to make sure that lead nurturing is something that plays, a huge part of your marketing. And why do we want to lead nurture? I've got some statistics there that you can see. So from demand gen, for example, effective lead nurturing generates 50% more sales ready leads at a 33% lower cost. So you definitely want to be focusing on lead nurturing. I usually like to do lead nurturing from email marketing as well as LinkedIn messages. So that way you have 2 touch points that you can reach your database or your leads on. And I find when you combine the 2, it's actually really effective at generating a response from them or further engagement. Just the final thing I want to mention is your existing customers. I think they should also play a role in your buyer journey map as well as your lead generation as a whole. And, in a lot of cases, you find that you can actually upsell or cross-sell your existing customer base. But also just, minimizing churn can be a massive benefit to your business. And I've just got a little statistic at the bottom there that says, it costs your business anywhere from 5 to 25 times more to acquire a new customer than to retain an existing one. So simply by increasing your customer retention rate by as little as 5%, you can actually increase your return on investment by as much as 95%. So very important to focus on your customers and not just your leads. Just a quick one in terms of what channels and tools do we use for lead gen. So the reason I have pay-per-click as the main one here is because let's face it, majority of us are startups and we really just want to test the market out quickly. We may have an MVP ready to go. We want to test a specific niche. We need to do it quickly. We need to gather data really quickly. So things like, networking, search engine optimization, they take time. And also, if you do it without data from pay-per-click, you're kind of running blind a little bit with your SEO tactics. So I always like to launch with a pay-per-click campaign. You definitely don't have to be spending that much money to run a test to see what's working. And you can see some of the PPC stats there. So yes, a lot of B2B and a lot of B2C businesses do spend or do invest a lot more in SEO eventually, but they always start out with a pay-per-click strategy to test exactly what, target markets or niches are working, exactly what messages are working, what keywords are performing best on Google that you can then optimize for. And then also remarketing, of course. And Some of the stats I can read there. So search ads increase brand awareness by 80%. This is a statistic from Google. And definitely as a startup, you are going to need that brand awareness. So it's not just about lead gen, it's about putting your brand out there and making it memorable. And that's really important. And I absolutely love using a tool like Google Remarketing for that, because you only pay per click, which means all of those impressions that you get in the meantime, they're absolutely free. Also, 65% of, and this is B2B specifically, they've acquired customers through LinkedIn paid ads. So for a lot of my B2B clients, we always get started on LinkedIn paid ads. That's how we generate a really qualified database for them that we can then go ahead and lead, nurture, and turn into customers. Especially for B2B, I think you'll find that LinkedIn is quite good just because you can, of the different elements that you can choose. So for example, in the world of B2B, you really want to know things like employee size, company size, job title, even growth rate. You can target companies based on growth rate within LinkedIn. So it's a really good tool to use for if you're in the B2B industry. The biggest benefit I can give you, or the biggest advice I can offer you at this stage, for any of your pay-per-click campaigns, and I'm not going to talk about, how to write messages or anything like that, because if you had done the homework from your foundation, such as nailing your niche and clarifying your message, that should just write itself. You can definitely get that homework and use it for any of your advertising collateral. But the biggest tip I can give you is to always be A/B testing, constantly A/B test, whether it be different ad copies, whether it be, on the landing page, different call to actions, whether it be different testimonials, whether it be different media, so image versus video. You'd be surprised how many tests we've run, and something so little like the color of the call to action button can increase conversions by, multiple percentages. I'll actually give you an example that we ran for one of our startup clients. Their name is QSN, or Quit Stop Now. They launched about 5 years ago. They've been with us ever since. So no longer a startup. We're now actually looking to expand into the UK and the US. But initially, we needed to kind of make their brand, we needed to make people aware of the brand in Australia. So within 5 years, they've now helped 21,000 people stop smoking, which is, something to be proud of, I think. They've helped a lot of people on their health journeys. But I just wanted to share 2 different landing page copies right there. And this is just in the header. Everything else is the same. So we tested copies such as, we get you off the nicotine in 6 days or your money back, versus quit smoking and breathe easy again. And if you look at the test below, which was done through a free tool by the name of Google Optimize, really easy to use, copy and paste the code into your header on your website, and then it's really easy to use within Google, and Google will give you those results right there. So it even gives you the probability to the best before the experiment is actually over. So we found that the second one worked a lot better, and over time, those results did become a lot better as well. And I think it's because we focused on an internal pain point right there. So quit smoking and breathe easy again. I think that's a problem a lot of smokers do have. Whereas the first one was very much focused on QSN as a company. So what we do and, money back guarantee. I think these are messages that people see all over the place, and they're very capable at ignoring, which is why I think that second message definitely touched a nerve, and yeah, it definitely created a lot more conversions. Okay, I just wanted to give you a history of pay-per-click channels before I introduce this next one as something that I think you should try no matter what industry you're in. But basically, the reason I do this is nowadays people, and this is a statistic that I recently read, people are actually exposed to 4,000 advertising messages per day, and they are very capable at ignoring them. We're just so used to seeing content everywhere and just shutting off when it doesn't suit us. So if we look at go back to 1994, and we look at the first ever online banner, it had a click-through rate of 44%, which is absolutely amazing. You will never see that in this day and age. I mean, even a banner that's offering a free Bitcoin, I don't think will generate this many clicks. And then, of course, 3 years later, 1997, we see the first pop-up ad. I think back then it was quite exciting, but now it's the most annoying thing in the world. If you're running pop-ups, definitely stop right away. Go back to 2000, we see the launch of Google AdWords, and that's definitely come a long way over the years. That was roughly when I graduated from school and first got into the world of Google Ads. So I can definitely tell you from what it was back then to what it is now, huge improvements, lots of features. Then we look at when Facebook ads launched back in 2007. And that was roughly when we opened up Hat Media as an agency. And at the time, we were just offering Google and Facebook ads. Marketing has come such a long way since then. Obviously, you can't just do lead gen with these campaigns. You also have to be doing a lot of lead nurturing, a lot of remarketing. So we use tools like HubSpot and the likes as well. So we'll never use Google or Facebook as a standalone platform. And then the main one I wanted to draw your attention to, I know it's back 9 years, but even back that many years ago, you'd see ad blockers, and over 50 million people are using ad blockers. So now it's come a long way since then. A lot of people are blocking ads. A lot of people are ignoring ads, which brings me to my next slide. I think if you wanted to consider something that cuts through, definitely consider native ads. And what are native ads? They're basically ads that run on highly trusted news websites, and they look very natural in the results. So why do we like them? 44% more likely to be trusted, 21% more likely to be clicked, and also 24% more likely to lead to future purchases. So native ads compared to the normal ads that you run on, say, the likes of Facebook or Google, are definitely performing a lot better. At the moment, these statistics are very much true for regions such as the US and EMEA. In Australia, they're a little bit more behind. We're a bit slower at these types of campaigns than the rest of the world, but I'm definitely seeing some great results come from them. And I'll just show you what they look like. So you can see here, one of the most popular channels to use for native ads is Outbrain. And you can see how they're displayed in the credible news sites. So whether it be your Sydney Morning Herald or your CNN or BBC, very highly trusted news sites. So as you're scrolling the feeds, reading information, you come across something that's non-obtrusive. It doesn't, it doesn't disturb your user journey. So you're more likely to kind of read it as part of the story and then click on it to find out more. Two things I love about Outbrain as well. The first one is you can build funnels. So, from awareness to consideration to decision, you're building different types of messages, and you're targeting the people that have clicked on the first one with a different message when, the second time round, and so on and so on. So it's actually a great platform for building out funnels. And the second thing I love about it, it's really cost effective when you compare it to something like Google or Facebook or even LinkedIn. So as an example, per click, you can expect to be paying around 80 cents to $1 on Outbrain, compared to, the average on Google Ads is probably $6 to $10. The average on Facebook has now rapidly increased, especially due to the recent updates from Apple. And LinkedIn, I still highly recommend LinkedIn as your #1 choice if you're in the B2B world. However, if you're going to be remarketing to that audience, I highly recommend you use Outbrain because it's a lot more cost effective, and there's a lot of more creative options here as well for you. Okay, so we've touched on some of the channels that you could use for pay-per-click. I just want to explore content marketing as a lead gen tool as well, because this kind of makes the focal point of all of our marketing. It should be centered on content, and content specifically that is targeted to our niche and helps our niche solve their problems. So why do we look at content marketing? Very simply, content marketing costs 62% less than outbound marketing and generates 3 times as many leads. Also, content marketing positions you as a thought leader in your industry. So if you're creating content around some of the biggest questions that your customers have in that industry, and you can use tools like Google Trends or Answer the Public to have a look at what are people asking Google, and therefore what can I be creating content around. You can then share that on your website and on your social platforms for people to see. Not only will that help with your search engine optimization, it'll also help with your thought leadership status. And when you share it on, say, LinkedIn Pulse and through your profile, your target audience will see that and see you as a thought leader. And why do we want to be a thought leader? Just those stats there that you can see. So 60% of business decision makers said that thought leadership directly led to their awarding of a business to an organization. And of course, when we create content, we go back to our buyer journey map or our funnel, so to speak. So you're definitely creating different types of content depending on where your customers are. So very much at the awareness phase, you could be creating videos where you're answering common questions, blog posts, social media posts. You could be doing quizzes and infographics. And then, of course, when we get to consideration, what you might want to do is a webinar where you're exploring a lot more detail some of those questions. And especially if you're in the SaaS industry, perhaps using the last 10 to 15 minutes of your webinar to give a demo of your product or a quick demo. Events work really well in this phase as well as white papers and newsletters, or just weekly to fortnightly nurture emails. And then, of course, when we get to decision, you really need to focus on creating case studies and not just PDFs. I think video case studies work incredibly well. A lot more people are willing to watch a video case study than they are to read, say, a 4-page PDF document. So that's how the funnel should look in terms of what type of content do you need to be creating for lead gen, lead nurture, and then also turning them into customers. And I've given you Answer the Public as an example. So if you were to go to that website just to explore what type of content can I be creating that my buyer personas will resonate with, and you already have your keyword that they're looking for. So say lead generation. These are all of the questions that have been put into Google over the months that people are wanting to know. So pick the ones that are related to your business and write content around them. Another really cool tool that I use that I think you'll love is BuzzSumo. It gives you what are the trending topics on social around those keywords, and it also gives you content ideas. So you can look at trending now, you can look at backlinks, you can look at content analysis. There's so much data in there that you can use, and I think that tool comes with a free trial. So definitely have a play with around with it when you go to create your content strategy, so to speak. I think once you're creating your content strategy, these are the 2 main tools you want to be using. Then we get to email marketing, and this really comes in play with lead nurturing. So what type of emails do you want to be automating? And when I say automating, my recommendations for tools is something like HubSpot. I've also worked with the likes of Pardot, Eloqua, Ontraport, but I have to say HubSpot's definitely my favorite one. It's just so much more user-friendly, and there's a lot more features allowed within it. They also have really cool resources and discounts that they offer to startups. So definitely, if you're considering, a marketing automation or an email marketing tool, do check out HubSpot. And here's some of the emails that you could be creating, not just for your leads, but for your customers as well. So the first one is just start the customer relationship off on the right foot. Send them a welcome email, tell them you appreciate them, and tell them what you're about as well. So this is where you can share your story a little bit more, because they've already engaged with you, so they'd like to learn more about you. Then what you could do is improve the onboarding process. So asking your customers if they have any questions about your products. Also, if you are in the SaaS or tech space and you have data available to you about how they're engaging with your software or your app, you can definitely use that to craft some of the content. So for example, if you see that they're really struggling and not really using some of the features, you might create some how-to videos around how to do that, because the more features they use within your platform, the more likely they are to stay on board as a client and not churn. Then, of course, what you want to be creating is a monthly EDM or newsletter just to keep in touch with them, keep your brand top of mind. It should definitely be customer centric, but you can also display a little bit about your company culture. Customers love to see that they're in a nice and safe environment. Oops, sorry about that. Then what you want to do is some of the other emails that you can create or content assets you can create. One is a scorecard. So send your customers a survey. This can be either built out in SurveyMonkey or once again in HubSpot, and ask them to rate you on multiple points. So if that comes back really positive, I then recommend you ask them for a proper review so that you can get that. It could be either on Google or Captera. It really depends what industry you're in, but reviews is something we love. Reviews from customers is what helps us get leads in the future. It's definitely a good authority to use, especially on your website. So do try and get a lot more reviews and referrals from your customers. Fifth one, referral club. So all the happy customers, why not give them an incentive? For example, 5% off their next monthly bill if they were to refer a new client to you or a new lead to you. So have a think about what that could look like, but specifically to your business. But just by offering them that incentive, it automatically gets them thinking about, oh, who do I know that would benefit from this? So it's a really cost-effective and easy way to get more customers on board. Because they're also coming from an existing happy customer, the sales cycle is really short. They already trust you, and they're happy to go ahead a lot more than if they were a cold lead that's never heard of you. And then, of course, consider if there's any cross-sell or upsell opportunities within your industry. So if you've got existing customers on board and they've signed up for the starter package, so to speak, is there an opportunity to sell them more, get them to use more features, get them to use more services? Of course, not straight away. Once they're happy with what they've received thus far, have a look at, how can we get more out of them? This is the final slide. Just before you go, I wanted to touch on the future of B2B marketing. So if you're not using these three types of campaigns, I highly urge you to look at them in greater detail and consider them for your next type of, launch or campaigns that you're planning. The first one, of course, is marketing automation. If you're not using this by now, you absolutely need to explore it. It's not just that your competitors are using it. It's not just that it's an industry that's going to grow to 25 billion by, in 2 years' time. It's also your consumers are demanding this from you. They're actually demanding relevant experiences. They expect you to know more about them and their behaviors. And if you were to send them an email or any type of message, it has to resonate with them, and how they expect it to, because they know about the tools that are available. So they expect a lot more from you as a brand. And so it takes a lot more to impress them and turn them into a customer. The second one is account-based marketing, and this is only relevant if you're in the B2B industry. So this is really just about flipping the funnel and just becoming hyper-personalized and hyper-focused on really specific accounts. So this is where we explore quality over quantity. And it's great because it reduces the sales cycles, but it also makes sure no advertising dollars are wasted. There's some stats there for you as well. So 91% of companies using ABM increased their average deal size, with 25% reporting an increase of plus 50%. And it's just because rather than focusing your efforts on, a whole bunch of leads, you've become hyper-focused on specific accounts. So all of your marketing efforts have been to make this account trust you and want to work with you. So they're more likely to go ahead with you, but also spend more with you. So I do actually have an ebook that I've created on account-based marketing. There's also a chapter on account-based marketing in my book. So if you did want to read more about that, those are two platforms where you can see it. You can download the ebook from the website. It's free to download. And also stay for that last slide because I'll give you the chance to win a copy of the book as well. And then, of course, the last one is chatbots. So you may see those everywhere, but there's actually, a good way of doing that and a poor way of doing that. So I happen to know one company that's generating an incredible number of leads for a lot of companies. They don't use a bot per se. It's actually live chat. And they're very good at answering questions or frequently asked questions and just booking meetings in with the sales team. So really, when you think about chatbots, once again, think about the buyer journey with the chatbot and how does that look? So when your visitors on your website are consulting your chatbot, what is that experience like? Is it positive? Is it negative? That's really important to whether they become, a customer and whether they spend more money with you. Cool. So that should give you maybe just a glimpse of what I talk about in my book. Hopefully I've managed to give you enough value today. If not, I am offering you this giveaway right here, free copy of my book, Go to Market, the Marketing and Scaling Blueprints for Startups. All you have to do is complete a really short 2-minute survey. It's just been put into the Q&A box for you to access. If not, just simply go to surveymonkey.com/r/hat-media and you should be able to access it. And that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening to me for the last 46 minutes. I will now open up the floor for Q&A. So any questions you may have, please feel free to ask.
Thanks, Joanna. I've just put the link to the SurveyMonkey in the Q&A section, and we also had another link for your blog for Hat Media there as well, which I put into the Q&A. Also just a survey link for our end from Reactor Sydney, and then just future upcoming events I'm going to put in there, and the link to our YouTube channel. We actually haven't had any questions come through, Joanna, which means you've probably answered all questions throughout your presentation. So thank you very much. We will give people 1 minute or two if they want to ask anything. But in the meantime, I'd like to say thank you again for your presentation. It was very informative. Some great tips there. And then for everyone else that's tuned in, the chance to grab a book. We've got the link there. Hopefully we'll see you in person soon or back for another live stream event to do a part 2. And thank you for joining us today, and thank you to everyone else for joining us wherever you were joining from today. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon and evening. No questions came through, Joanna, so thank you again. Is there anything you'd like to close with?
No, good. Thank you so much, everybody, for being on today's call with me. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Sarah, for having me. And definitely we'll be doing a lot more content around go-to-market strategies and lead gen in the future as well. So stay tuned.
Great. Thanks, Joanna. We're looking forward to it. And thank you again, everyone, for joining Microsoft Reactor Sydney for another live stream event. We'll see you again soon.